so that you go into the next sequence of planting, which is the native hardwood trees, and they have a better chances of surviving because they're not being hit by the sunlight. They're protected by the canopy from the first growth. There's a bit of a science to this. Let's put it that way. We came out with a one-page ad on this, and the comment that we got from the lady that's managing this movement is that, well, they've been mining for 30 years, so why are they only rehabilitating in 2008? But that is not true. We have... you can never win in this game, you know. We have started rehabilitating since the 1980s. We have rehabilitated 238 hectares. We've planted over 500,000 trees doing this. And outside of the mining areas, we've also planted over 300,000 trees. Our environmental expenses in 2010 was 44 million pesos. This is what it looks like inside. We also keep track of the fauna and that comes back to this area, and there's quite a few of them, and those are all documented. They also show this slide. They call this a mined-out area of Rio Tuba, taken in 1996 to early 1998. I don't know how they got this picture. We had this investigated, and in fact, this area has been rehabilitated already, and that's the picture below. But they still show that picture in their presentations. The only thing that we really have to pay attention to in lateritic nickel mining is siltation. So we take care of that by a series of retention ponds in strategic parts of the deposit. You all know about this. And also dust. In order to control the dust, we use a lot of water spraying, windbreakers, and the like. We'll now go very briefly. I'm winding down now. I know this is a bit long. We're now going through to the social development projects. And as you know, mining companies here are obliged to spend 1% of our direct mining and milling costs if any, towards social development management projects. And that has now been raised to 1.5% of total operating costs. So that amount is going to go quite high. And what we do in Rio Tuba is we commingle the obligations of Rio Tuba and Coral Bay into a foundation, the RTN Foundation, so that the expenditures and the type of programs that we spend on are done in a coordinated manner throughout the impact area. Let me just go through these figures here because they are interesting. For Rio Tuba, the commitment for 2010 is 39.2 million pesos, and that's composed of the 1% of 5.2 million, and it's also composed of a 1% royalty to the IPs. We have indigenous peoples in the area, which is 34 million. They don't have an ancestral land or ancestral domain title. But there's 13,000 of them, and early on, we recognized our obligation to them, and so the 1% is paid to them. So the obligation of Rio Tuba, if you combine both, is 39 million for 2010. The company actually spent 62 million pesos. And Coral Bay, the 1% of their costs is 68 million, and they've actually spent 104.6 million. So on a combined basis, the two companies spent 166 million pesos for social development work in the municipality of Batarasa, if you include the 1% that goes to the IPs. This is the impact area. It's quite large. It's composed of 11 barangays and 24 indigenous cultural communities. There are 13,000 indigenous persons within the impact area. So very briefly, we'll look at the programs that we've instituted, some of them some years ago. A hospital that's being funded by the RTN Foundation. It's considered a primary hospital. 38 staff. Over 40,000 patients in 2010. About 2,900 were inpatients. 65% of them are non-dependents. And the hospital is given for free to employees and dependents of both companies, to the indigenous peoples in the area, and is given at cost to everybody else. In 2010, it cost the two companies, this is shared between Rio Tuba and Coral Bay, it cost 60.5 million to operate, and 39.4 million of that is credited against our SDMP, against our obligation for social expenditures. Schools, we have a kindergarten, elementary, and high school under the supervision of the De La Salle University in Bacolod City, 52 staff, 1,300 enrollees, 63% of them are non-dependents, and this is virtually given to them for free. It's cost 27 million in 2010, and 17 million of that is credited against our social obligation. Housing for the indigenous peoples. In coordination with the Gawad Kalinga Foundation, they have a very nice program where they require sweat equity. So if you want one of these houses, you have to spend 1,000 hours of sweat helping to construct the house, which is the best way of getting them to take ownership. And we have built 208 units so far in 6 different sites. You'll see one of the sites below on the left-hand side of the picture. In 2010, it cost 13 million pesos. And the reason why we did this is because if you look at this slide on the top left is the kind of housing that the indigenous peoples were living in, and we gave them the option to move into the Gawad Kalinga housing. And this is purely voluntary. They don't have to accept this, but every one of them has accepted this housing program. That actually wasn't meant as a joke. Sometimes these people will say that you're forcing the IPs to move. We're not forcing them to move anywhere. They can say no to. They can stay where they are if they want to. Honestly. Indigenous learning system. We set this up in conjunction with the St. Jude school, Catholic school, adjacent to Malacanang. 3 levels, levels 1 to 3. Working staff of 14. 667 IPs are enrolled here, and they're not only kids, they're also adults. And we spent 10.3 million pesos for this in 2010. So I'm going to pause here for a while. You can consider what we do for the indigenous peoples in our area. They get free housing if they want to. They get free medical care. They get free education. They get livelihood. They get employment. Some of them are employed. They're also beneficiaries of our SDMP, so they get other things too. And yet, when the Safe Palawan movement does their presentation, if you've had a chance to see it, you will see 2 IP ladies from our area talking against the company and talking against mining in general. We oppose mining. Well, we know these ladies, and before I tell you why we know them, this lady herself is a beneficiary of our programs. 3 of her children were scholars. She has received seeds and fertilizer and cash for her cornfield. She actually has a cornfield and some livestock as well. She herself is enrolled in the indigenous learning system, not her kids, but she, because she's illiterate. She receives medical care for the whole family. But she is also used by ELAC and PNNI, the 2 very well-known anti-mining groups in Palawan, for their anti-mining advocacies. So sometimes you get people like this that take from one hand and take from both hands, actually. She's actually quite a smart lady. So I assume that she's getting something from the other side too, right? So the question is, does she represent the entire 13,000 indigenous peoples within our area? I hardly think so. Another lady, the 2 of them actually come out in their presentation. Same thing, they benefit tremendously from the programs of the company, but they also participate in anti-mining activities in Palawan. They do not represent the 13,000 indigenous persons that benefit from our operations. SDMP funds go to infrastructure. Last 3 or 4 slides, folks. Schools, with daycare centers, roads and bridges. Livelihood projects with emphasis on agriculture and fishing. 3 bancas were given a whole bunch of hand tractors and what have you. Social services, ambulances, fire trucks. Water systems, a big effort in water systems in the municipality. Educational assistance, even though we have our own schools, we still have scholars. We have 200 high school and over 200 college scholars. These are the college scholars that you will see here, and it's part of our SDMP commitment. Last 2 slides from me. This is one slide that is shown in their presentation. I think the top part represents us. At least we're given credit for generating jobs and scholarships and daycare centers and revenues. And what's below probably doesn't represent us. I'm not sure in what context this is said. But of course, the message here is that it is not one against the other. I mean, surely a balanced form of development is the way to go. And in some presentations, they end with this, which is outrageous, to say the least. On the left is an example of phosphate mining in Nauru, and we don't do that kind of mining here. And on the right is the same picture of this mined out area of Rio Tuba, which today has been fully rehabilitated. So that completes my presentation. I thank you for your kind attention. I'm sorry if I've ruined your lunch. I would like to call now on Art Dicini to discuss, this is at the request of Kevin, to discuss some of the burning issues of the industry today. Thank you.
Okay, since everybody's been introduced already and acknowledged, I'll just go straight to the issues that are affecting the mining industry today. There are going to be 7 issues. 5 of them are a result of the anti-mining movements or pushing to get a policy affected on mining. As you well know, the anti-mining groups has issues regarding the environment, such as the destruction of the watersheds by mining operations, pollution of agricultural lands, and for the indigenous people, they claim that there's a displacement of indigenous people in ancestral domain areas and militarization of mining in ancestral areas. However, while they were trying to get this targeted in the SONA for the president, it has not appeared, and the president has not issued any EO to ban large-scale mining despite the many issues brought out by these anti-mining groups. Likewise, there's still a big support on mining. NEDA has included the mining among the 5 growth industries in the medium-term development plan. So we're in there. And then, of course, the IPP priority list by the BOI, mining has always been part of this IPP list every year. So I believe that we have contained more or less the anti-mining issues. However, I have in here, which is not officially, should not be officially disclosed, but in time it will be given to all mining companies who are interested to get a copy of it. It's a very good report done by a research group, which shows the different moves, concerted moves, and not just 1 or 2. It's a concerted move of the anti-mining groups, and they are all identified. But I don't want to be in the headlines tomorrow, so I will not take that up today. Issue number 2 is the ban on open pit mining. The issue here is whether the national laws prevail over local environmental code. There are 5 provinces who have a moratorium on ban on open pit mining. We have Capiz, Romblon, Samar, Mindoro, South Cotabato, and Marinduque. And 2 cities, Puerto Princesa and Batangas City. Since we have many members of the chamber with varying interests, and we have, of course, different options then to satisfy each one. The DILG secretary is open engaging both the LIGU, local government unit, and the South Cotabato project of Extrata. Others want a filing of a test case in the Supreme Court. That is being considered. And there has been some progress, according to Secretary Purisima, when the SMI